When it comes to creepy haunted tourism spots around the world, we all know the obvious locations like the Cecil Hotel, the Winchester Mystery House, the Amityville Home. You know, the tourist traps. But what about some lesser known marvels? Well, that's where my expertise comes in handy. Question for you, what's an obscure, mysterious place you're certain only you know about? Because mine is the LaSalle Theatre in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. But let me know yours in the comments and let's get cracking. How about we kick off today with Whitby Abbey over in Yorkshire. Known for its eerie cameo in the Bram Stoker novel, Dracula, one of my favorites, Whitby Abbey has been a pilgrimage for many horror fans, goths, and, well, vampires over the centuries. The 1897 novel featured the famous vampire posing as a large dog, which came ashore in Whitby and runs up the iconic 199 steps to the graveyard of St. Mary's Church in the shadow of the Abbey ruins. Trust me when I say it's currently on my bucket list of ideal travel locations. And hey, as if the gothic vibe and Dracula's connection isn't spine-tingling enough, Atmospheric Abbey is said to be home to the ghost of a young nun who was bricked up alive in the walls after breaking her vows. It is also said that St. Hilda, who founded the abbey, roams the grounds and looks down onto the town from the highest windows. St. Hilda is apparently also joined by Constance de Beverley, who is the nun who broke her vows of chastity, and you can still hear her today pleading for her release. According to the Whitby Guide, the town is jam-packed full of spirits and ghostly goings-on. There are more of Whitby's ghosts found in one of the 2 lighthouses on its coast. One lighthouse is said to be visited by a one-armed ghost of a man who fell to his death onto the rocks under said lighthouse. Now, this entity does much more than simply try to scare people to the location. He attempts to trip you so you can join him in the afterlife. And a phantom hearse with 4 headless horses and a headless driver has been spotted in front of St. Mary's Church. Which, yes, the church that's in the shadow of the Abbey. Whitby is also home to the Barghest Hound, which is said to be a glowing-eyed hound of hell. This hound is said to roam the streets, and only those who are going to die soon are able to hear its deathly growl. Now, there are several hotels in the area that are said to be home to many ghostly visitors, the oldest being a Tudor mansion built in 1516. Bagdale Hall is said to be haunted by its former owner, Brown Bushell, who was executed for his acts of piracy. The ghost of Brown is said to roam the halls and stairways, and has also been blamed for several reports of poltergeist activity. The streets of Whitby are also home to a lot of other apparitions that are just meandering around after dark. I know one is a coach, which is pulled to the graves of sailors in St. Mary's Churchyard by those headless horses. Now, the passengers are the skeletons of sailors who make the trip on the 3rd day after the funeral to pay their respects and gather the corpses of the fallen sailors so that they can join them. Like, seriously, that many ghosts? Alright, how about we talk about Margam Country Park over in West Glamorgan. Folks, I tried with the pronunciations, I looked them up, I swear. So this park in South Wales is home to the ruined Capel Mar Bryn, where the presence of unwelcoming ancient monks has been felt. And you know, at the end of the day, it's a big gothic castle stalked by the spirit of a rageful and unjustly being, thought to be Robert Scott, by the way, a gamekeeper that worked at the castle for many years. It is thought that he was wrongly killed by a poacher, and his spirit still rages around the grounds today. Now, he's been seen ascending the gothic staircase with a lot of purpose, just being like, no, this is my castle. His presence has come forward regularly with psychic investigators, all of whom have insisted his spirit is consumed with rage over his unjust killing. Also, you can hear the sounds of giggling young people. I think that's heard pretty frequently throughout the long corridors and the dramatic rooms of the family areas. There have also been reports of small spirits in Victorian dress seen drifting in and out of doorways and mischievously moving objects. The large figure of the blacksmith is also a familiar vision to many of the gamekeepers and guarding staff today, who maintain the vast castle grounds. At night, the castle security guards have reported the noise of running footsteps and chattering voices with no sign of anybody else in the building. Reports of cold spots and orbs in the castle are frighteningly abundant on paranormal activity nights. Now, this castle sits nestled on an 850-acre country estate, roughly 2 miles from Port Talbot. So technically, it is a Victorian-era country home, but it was built to look like a castle, so that's why I've been calling it a castle today. I believe it was built between 1830 to 40, and it was commissioned after Christopher Rice Mantle Talbot returned from a grand tour of Europe, where he'd fallen in love with the Gothic architecture. And he was home, he's like, yeah, I want something similar. It's his family estate after all. There had already been a family home prior to this, but he was like, out you go. I want this. The family remained with the house until 1942 when it was finally sold to Sir David Evans Bevan. However, he was like, this is a bit too big for my needs, but he couldn't find anybody who would take it on, so it slowly fell into disrepair before the county council took it on in 1974. Now, devastatingly, in 1977, a fire caused extensive damage to the building and everything within. But hey, there's a restoration project still ongoing. And even though the castle, as it stands, was relatively new in history, the land itself had actually been in use for a lot longer and is thought to have been occupied for around 4,000 years. There is actual evidence that Bronze Age people settled in the area, with several burial mounds being discovered in the park. There was also evidence of Roman occupation. There's a lot of ghost seeds and a lot of history. The ruins of the abbey remain on the grounds, after being destroyed like many others during the dissolution of the monasteries in 1537. But come on. How does this not sound like a really cool place to go visit? Okay, I guess it's time to travel to a different part of the world to visit the Mantle Art Centre in Western Australia. It was founded in 1964 and is a World Heritage Site. So, one little thing, it was initially built by convicts and served as a hospital for mentally ill and a lot of settlers, and was named the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum. Hundreds of patients were in crowded quarters, and they were suffering from alcoholism, sunstroke, you name it. People were forced to live in deplorable conditions because they were all criminally mentally ill. And as a result, well, that many people, you're gonna get some terrible incidents. One of these included a patient who killed a woman called Mrs. Clifford, and another patient took their own life. People reported seeing another phantom woman who was thought to be the ghost of a woman who was taken in after her daughter was abducted. And after her horrific experience, the poor woman suffered from, well, psychiatric problems. She took her life by leaping from a first-floor window, and in that same room, people report hearing a young voice, believed to be that of her daughter. One person who has seen a disturbing full apparition at the art center is renowned medium Anthony Brelska, also known as Australia's Ghost Whisperer. He joined a television team staying overnight in the building, filming a documentary on the hauntings. And he's like, locked in an asylum at 3 a.m. wasn't my idea of a good time, because it was that night when Anthony saw the very tough and hardened spirit of a man standing halfway down a corridor. And the temperature in that area dropped from 22 degrees to less than 16 in an area of 3 meters. Anthony was like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of uneasy about this. His impressions were that it wasn't an inmate of the asylum when it was operating, but a very nasty nurse or warden type. And with that type of energy, he can't even begin to fathom the types of things that this warden did to those poor souls who were patients in that place so many years ago. This very unpleasant man had been there a very long time. And how did he know that? Well, it's because of his demeanor and his dress. Anthony later discovered that several security guards refused to enter that part of the asylum after a couple had been pushed down a stairwell. He's like, yeah, I knew this nasty person was responsible. He later moved into an area that he describes as one of the most haunted locations he had ever visited. The thing that he noticed almost immediately when he entered the area was a strong smell of burning, like the overpowering, really bad stench of flesh burning. And it wasn't until the next morning that he learned that the area had been used at the turn of the century to administer electric shock treatments to its patients. So throughout history, there was a lot of American soldiers who would be stationed at the building. Yeah, they got spooked. They would hear odd whisperings, bangings, noises at night. Even some folks got touched by ghostly hands, and they were like, yep, nope. Even today, a lot of visitors experience weird phenomena. Even tour guides. There was a group in a closed room, and they all heard what appeared to be heavy clanking footsteps coming towards the door. And they stopped in front of the door, and when they opened it, there was nobody there. There was one visitor who reported being touched by phantom lips from the kissing ghost. Another story that's been told is about a young girl who was locked in one of the old cells in the building, and she started banging on the door, pleading to be let out. And at that time, every window in the building vibrated violently, and doors started opening and closing by themselves. Maybe it's time to plan a visit to Australia. Okay, here is a place that should not be visited, but still warrants a mention today. Lua-o-Milu in Hawaii. Hawaiian locals have requested that tourists stop visiting for a plethora of reasons. The island state is burdened by over-tourism, and it's becoming a big problem for ecological and resource purposes. Let's just say virtually we're going to take a trip right now. We're not going to go there in person, we're just going to do this virtually. So if you were to visit Hawaii's Waipio Valley, a paradise of waterfalls and black sand beaches surrounded by cliffs, it's doubtful you're going to think, this must be a gate to hell. Well, according to ancient folklore, Waipio is the access point to Lua-o-Milu, or the land of the dead. As the story goes, the souls of the deceased leaped from the tall sea cliffs to enter an underworld ruled by the death god Milu. Milu was the deity of death, and his name was synonymous with the realm itself, virtually identical to the Greco-Roman tradition and, Hades. The tradition goes on to suggest that his subterranean entrance has long since been buried beneath the black sands deposited over a millennia of sweeping ocean tides. Now, according to locals, spirits of the dead can and do observe the living from this realm, rewarding honorable deeds of their ancestors, and can likewise punish them by turning the living into stone by staring at them with discontent. The valley was also the original throne of the ancient Hawaiian kings, who ruled from their stone temples and their grass palaces with 4 20-foot-tall trees, all bejeweled with hibiscus blossoms. There's been many other myths as well, and legends of deities, demons, demigods, and more that emanate from this holy place. Just don't go visit it. Time to end today with a doozy. Burj Al Babas in Turkey. The happiest place on earth? This isn't. This place was originally intended to be a thriving town with 732 identical castles available as vacation homes for anyone who could pay the price, which was around $500,000. With construction starting in 2014 and planning in place for sports facilities, movie theaters, and Turkish baths, the $200 million project fell apart with only 587 buildings completed. In 2018, Turkey's currency and debt crisis began, and the development went bankrupt. But the eerie, perfect castles of the abandoned city are still there though, with turrets, Juliet balconies, and pristine white stones, just waiting for someone to come in on a white horse and save them from eventual ruin. So sure, while this place not be as obviously haunted or full of creepy history as the other entries on today's list, just looking at photos of the abandoned homes gives me the creeps. There's something weird about it just waiting to be uncovered. And I'm not about to be the sacrificial lamb that's going to unlock the secrets. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our time once again. I've been Alexa, your resident dookie spooky girly, and if you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you weren't already, hit the bell for more mysterious content from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.